Religion of Freedom. A talk given by the Venerable Dr. K. Sri Dhammananda Nayaka Thera at the Buddhist Vihara, Brickfields, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
Buddhism is a very liberal and gentle religion, which has given due credit to man's intelligence. In the Karana Sutta, one of the discourses delivered by the Buddha, he has given a very liberal advice to a group of young people on how to accept a religion in a rational manner. These young people who could not decide on how to choose a proper religion came to see the Buddha to seek his advice. They told him that since different religious groups introduced religion in different ways, they were confused as they could not understand which method was correct. These young people, it would appear, were free thinkers or truth seekers. That was why they decided to discuss this matter with the Buddha. They requested him to give some guidelines to help them find a reasonable religion through which they could find truth. In reply to their question, the Buddha did not say that Buddhism was the only true religion. Instead, he gave some important advice for them to consider. The Buddha never encouraged people to accept a religion through mere faith, but he encouraged them to consider and understand things without bias. He also did not persuade people to use emotion and mere devotion based on blind faith to accept a religion. This is why Buddhism is known as a rational religion. It is also known as a religion of freedom and reason. There should be nothing for us to accept through faith or emotion in order to practice a religion. If we accept a religion to justify our need for desire or pleasure, then there will be no real religious value in such practices. Religion must be accepted through free choice. Each person must accept a religion with understanding and not because it is a law given by some authorities or supernatural powers. There must be a personal and rational conviction about the religion that is accepted. When we seriously consider the advice given by the Buddha, we can understand this very clearly. Many people have not yet learned to appreciate the freedom that is allowed in Buddhism. When we compare this freedom with other religions, we can understand the real meaning of religious freedom. Throughout our life, from our birth to death, the freedom that we experience according to this Buddhist attitude is remarkable. I doubt whether the followers of other religions also can enjoy the same freedom. I don't think that the followers of Buddhism themselves really understand the extent of the freedom that they experience in their day-to-day lives. For example, according to at least one religion, there is a law that every child must be baptized according to its religious tradition. It is believed that otherwise the child would remain a sinner and it will be impossible for him to find salvation. But we cannot find such religious law in Buddhism. Usually, Buddhists bring their newborn children to the temple to perform some religious services and receive some blessings. Although it is not compulsory, this type of traditional practice is often practiced and is considered important to develop a Buddhist confidence and conviction in life. But the parent does this voluntarily. There is no Buddhist law which requires him to bring a child to the temple to be initiated as a Buddhist. When the time comes for marriage, there is no Buddhist law that requires every person to get married in a temple, because Buddhism does not regard marriage as a religious sacrament. Going through a marriage ceremony is a symbolic acceptance of a personal duty in a worldly way of life. When people get married and have children, it is because they are still attached to the world of sensual desire. To Buddhists, marriage is neither holy nor unholy, but man or woman is free to remain either as a bachelor or get married. Some people like to avoid marriage in order to escape disturbances associated with married life and to devote more time to serve others. Then again, others like to concentrate on spiritual development without being hampered by mental disturbances which arise through having to shoulder the responsibilities of marriage and parenthood. But in some religions, marriage is considered necessary unless one decides to take the vows of abstinence. They say that God had created man and woman to produce children, and that if they do not fulfill the will of God, they are going against His wish. Even after marriage, there is no religious law in Buddhism to say that a couple must produce children. But some religions say that since God gives children, people have to accept them. But this has created a very big problem in this world today, especially when it comes to population control. Buddhism also does not interfere with those who like to produce more children, if they can afford to attend to and look after their children without allowing them to suffer. Couples are at liberty to produce any number of children they want. Buddhism does not interfere with the freedom of a married couple to decide as to what they want to do. On the contrary, it gives all the necessary advice on how to maintain a happy family life. Buddhism does not condemn married life. In various discourses, the Buddha had, in fact, pointed out the duties and obligations that people have to fulfill in order to experience peace, happiness, and harmony in a family. The Buddha also mentioned that if a man or woman can have an understanding partner and obedient children, he or she would be fortunate. Of course, those who like to renounce the worldly pleasures by realizing the commitments, responsibilities, and problems that they have to face can abstain from marriage, sexual relationships. Religion should not prevent the freedom people prefer in that kind of life, provided that it is done with understanding. A sexual relationship between man and woman is not regarded as an evil act in Buddhism. There is nothing inherently sinful about sex. It is merely another sensual pleasure that human beings indulge in who are not free from sensual desire. Those who are overly concerned with the pleasure of sex are said to suffer mental unrest, which hinder their progress towards ultimate happiness. In Buddhism, morality and self-respect are important. People have to experience this very pleasure in a respectable way so that one does not degrade oneself or one's partner. Those who violate this principle of respect for oneself are regarded as having committed wrong action, bad karma. In Buddhism, we believe that every person is innately good. For a Buddhist, there is no sin, only bad karma or unskillful action. This kind of karma prevents mental purification and thereby hinders the attainment of ultimate happiness. Even when we react through anger to another's wrongdoing, we are guilty of bad karma because it is a mental defilement. This is why Buddhists are patient when they are condemned. They realize that the doer of the wrong action is deluded because of ignorance. If he can be shown that his action is misguided, he can gain wisdom. It is mentioned in the Buddha's teaching that even the greatest enemy of the Buddha, Devadatta, would one day realize the bliss of emancipation by becoming a Pacceka Buddha. There is no eternal damnation in Buddhism. If we do good and avoid evil for the sake of just pleasing a God without developing compassion and understanding, we only abuse our own intelligence and develop selfishness. Regarding the problem of family planning, Buddhists are at liberty to take any precaution to avoid conception. According to Buddhism, for a life to originate in the mother's womb, or a number of physical conditions must be present. When any one of these conditions is not present, as when birth control is practiced, then a life is not formed. So, birth control is merely the removing of the conditions arising from which life can come into being. However, when all the conditions are present and life is created at the moment of conception, it cannot be removed. Abortion is totally unacceptable to Buddhism. People may give various excuses to justify it according to their own convenience. They may claim that it is their personal affair, but it is nevertheless a violation of a universal or natural law, because no life that comes into being should be ended by another. The religious concept of death is another source of controversy. From the Buddhist point of view, death is the end of one existence and the beginning of another. So, death is not the end of a life. Life processes continue. In between birth and death, there is a mental link. Some people say that after their death, their bodies cannot be cremated because it is against their religion. Then again, others say that they cannot bury the dead but must be cremated according to their religion. At the same time, there is still another group which allow neither burial nor cremation. They keep the bodies of the dead in isolated places or on the top of pillars for vultures and other birds of prey to consume the flesh. In the Buddha's teaching, there is no restriction whatsoever regarding funeral rites. It is left to the discretion of the individual next of kin to perform funeral rites according to whatever way is convenient and sensible. It is obvious by that all forms of superstitious, traditional, ritualistic practices are discouraged in Buddhism. For thousands of years, people have been arguing about funeral rites. Naturally, this has created so much unnecessary misunderstanding and upheaval. Buddhists do not face this problem. That means they can live and work and die in any part of the world and can perform any kinds of solemn religious funeral service or last rite according to their convenience or cultural practices without hurting the sensitivities of others. Many people spend a great deal of money and time worrying about their death. For example, they build enormous and elaborate tombs to house the remains of the departed ones. This is due to the belief that the spirit had somehow remained within the coffin of the dead and that everything must be done to endure the physical comfort of these spirits. Then some people go to great length in burying their dead departed next to or alongside each other because the departed ones had been close to each other when they were alive. According to Buddhism, when people remember their dead, it is because of the gratitude they feel for their loved ones who had given them so much help and assistance when they were alive. The ceremonies they perform are merely to reflect this mental sense of gratitude. Therefore, Buddhism should not be unduly concerned with the physical remains of the dead. Rather, they should respect the dead by following the example set by them when they were alive, by thinking well of them. But you should not hold such superstitious belief and think that the spirits of the dead one will remain in the grave until one day when they will go to heaven or to hell, when the call comes to rise from the grave. Paying respect at the graveyard to the remains of the departed ones also gives emotional satisfaction to the living. But the continuity of the life and mental process proceeding immediately after death and existence thereafter will take place again according to the karmic force of the departed. Buddhists are even free from having to worry about what will happen to them after death. Some other people believe that they will be sent either to hell or to heaven and that they have no other choice. Certain religious groups instill fear in people's mind and threaten them by describing hellfire, or they create temptation by exaggerating the pleasures of paradise. By introducing such belief, they hope to advance their particular religions. Buddhists do not adopt such method to propagate Buddhism. Then, again, some religions claim that existence again after death is not limited only to heaven or hell, but that there are many other forms of existence into which rebirth can take place, such as humans, animals, devas, ghosts or spirits, and some other kinds of living beings in many parts of the universe, either visible or invisible. Some others say that nothing remains for another existence and try to prove this by saying that people who have departed from this world are never heard of again. That means there is no evidence to prove that there will be another life hereafter. According to them, death is the end of everything and we should not be bothered about our next life, because there is nothing beyond. Actually, all these various beliefs had been discussed even during the Buddha's time. What was the Buddha's attitude regarding this controversial issue? The Buddha never taught that this present existence on earth is the only life an existence hereafter takes place only either in heaven or hell. The belief in an eternal heaven or hell is also not acceptable to Buddhists because it is not practical or reasonable to have eternal reward or eternal punishment either in paradise or in hell for action created during a single lifetime or less than 100 years. Remember that 100 years is an incredibly short time when compared to eternity. The Buddhist attitude is that we should not crave and develop too much attachment toward the next life, because such a mental attitude can prolong our existence in this cycle of birth and death and cause us to suffer more. If we crave too much for an eternal life and we direct our concentration towards it, our mind gets preoccupied with the future. The Buddhist should not worry unduly about the past or the future. He should concentrate of mind with no worries and stay constantly at peace with himself in the present. We must do our duty and behave as harmless and understanding human beings. If we can do this, there is nothing for us to worry about our future existence. Since rebirth is a continuing process, existence cannot be considered miserable, but actually become favorable. If there is no rebirth, there will be nothing for us to regret. If we do good and avoid evil merely to ensure a better next life, we are selfish. We must try to fulfill our duties as human beings who work for the welfare of others without any thought of personal benefit to ourselves as a reward. Our idea should be not to please either God or Buddha, but to maintain our happiness in the knowledge that we have not caused misery to others and that we need nothing for ourselves. As human beings, we can understand the nature of good and bad from experience, but some religions impose law on man, commanding him to do certain actions by calling them commandments given by a God. Followers of these religions refrain from bad deeds and do good just to obey the lawgiver, so as to avoid punishment or to gain a reward. Modern anthropologists have discovered many things to prove that human beings had existed on this earth as civilized living beings even 100,000 years ago. When we consider that even the oldest religious law or commandments were introduced to us only a few thousand years ago, we can ask ourselves how men had lived as civilized human beings without having received such divine message even before religion was invented. Is it not due to man's innate understanding of his nature of existence? Man commits evil deeds but he knows instinctively that it is wrong. That is why he commits them secretly and hides after doing such a bad deed. His craving and selfish ideas persuade him to commit them. Good begets good and bad begets bad. This is a natural law, and people have known this even before religious laws were introduced. This truth was not created by anybody. This is simply the nature of action and reaction, cause and effect. Whether we have a religion or not, whether we believe it or not, each person experiences this in his day-to-day life. This understanding of the nature phenomena can develop in the mind when it is free from religious dogma. To understand right and wrong, people must use the free mind by using human intelligence without depending on anybody. The idea of doing good based on punishment and reward from a God is selfish. This attitude is suitable only for those who cannot appreciate the nature of good and bad. Adults must understand the nature of good and bad by considering the suffering that they have created through their wrongdoing and the services that they can experience. Give them knowledge. The resulting happiness and peace of mind that they attain through good deed is more important than that of any other material gain. It must also be emphasized that one must not crave for pleasure when doing good either. If we do good with selfishness, we will be disappointed because the reward that we expect may not measure up to our expectation. We must maintain an absolute balance of the mind without craving for any kind of reward. Only then can perfect peace of mind be attained. The Buddha had explained how to gain this absolute happiness without developing selfishness in our mind. The Buddha's advice, as mentioned in the Kalam Sutta, is not to accept anything based upon mere report, tradition, or hearsay. Usually, people develop faith after listening to others. They unthinkingly accept what others say about their religions or what is recorded in their religious books. Most people very seldom take the trouble to investigate or to find out whether what has been said is true or not. This general attitude is hard to understand, especially in this modern time when the scientific education teaches people never to accept anything which cannot be explained rationally. Even then, today, some of those so-called educated youth use only their emotion or devotion without using their sense of reasoning. People can write anything about their religions by exaggerating various incidents in order to influence others. Later, they can introduce them as divine messages to further develop faith or confidence. But we have to read these writings analytically by using our common sense and powers of reasoning. That is why the Buddha advised us not to accept anything hastily which is recorded, whether it is traditional or mere hearsay. People practice certain traditions which are based on belief, customs, or the way of life of the community to which they belong. However, certain traditions are very important and significant. Therefore, the Buddha did not condemn them, but advised us to consider very carefully whether those practices are meaningful or not. We also can understand that certain traditions are out of date and meaningless. This could be because many of them were introduced and practiced by primitive people, and their understanding about human life and the nature was very limited at that time. So, today, when we use our modern scientific education and knowledge of the universe, we can see the nature of their belief. The belief that primitive people had about the sun, moon, and the stars, the globe, the wind, thunder and lightning, rain and earthquakes were based on their attempt to explain these seemingly terrifying phenomena. They introduced them as God or act of God or some supernatural powers. With our advanced knowledge, today we know these phenomena for what they really are. That is why the Buddha said, don't accept what you hear at once. Don't try to justify your irrational behavior by saying that these are our traditions and we are bound to accept them. Everybody likes to listen to stories. Perhaps that is why people believe in hearsay. Assume that 100 people have seen a particular incident, and when each person repeats this incident to others, he will relate it in a different way by adding many more things and exaggerating the details. He will add more salt and spice to make it more tasty and interesting and to beautify it. Generally, human nature is such that each person will tell the story as if he is the only one who can tell the others of what had really happened. That is the nature of the stories that people create and spread. When you read certain stories in any religion, please remember that most of those interpretations are just to decorate a minor incident to attract people. Otherwise, there will be nothing for them to tell others and no one will pay any attention to them. However, stories are very useful. There are some moral lessons to be gained in many of those stories. So, don't accept anything simply because you heard them from others. People may talk about many kinds of miracles, God and goddesses, angels, and their powers according to their belief. Most people in this world may accept them at once without any investigation. According to the Buddha, it is not advisable to believe anything at once because the majority of people in this world are still in the dark and their understanding capacity of the truth is poor. Only very few people can understand things properly. Next, the Buddha warned us not to believe anything merely upon the authority of religious texts or holy books. People always say that all these messages found in their holy books were conveyed directly by their God. Today, they try to introduce those books as messages from heaven. It is difficult to believe that they received this message from heaven and had recorded it in their holy books only a few thousand years ago. Why were these revelations not made earlier, considering that the planet Earth is a few million years old? Why were they made only to certain favored individuals? Surely it would have been much more effective to assemble a whole lot of people in one place and reveal the truth to multitude rather than depend on one man to do the job. Buddhists do not try to introduce the teachings of the Buddha as a divine message, and they preach without using any mystical powers. According to the Buddha, we should not accept even his teaching as recorded in the Buddhist books blindly and without proper understanding. This is the remarkable freedom that Buddha had given us. Although he never claimed that Buddhists are the chosen people of God, he gave far greater credit for man's intelligence than any other religion has done. The best method for a rational person to do is to consider carefully before he accept or reject anything. Study, think and investigate until you realize what it is. If you accept by depending solely on authorities or holy books, you will never realize the truth for yourself. Not to depend upon your reasoning and argument alone is another advice of the Buddha. Do not think that your powers of reasoning are absolute. Otherwise, you will become proud and will not listen to others who know more than you. Normally, we advise people to use their sense of reasoning. Yes, by using their limited senses and mind, people reason things for themselves. Even children and uneducated people use their reasoning powers according to their age, maturity, education and understanding. But these reasoning powers differ from person to person according to their maturity, knowledge and experience. Again, this kind of reasoning is also subject to change from time to time. People's capacity indefinitely or their recognitions of changes also change from time to time. In such reasoning, there is no final analysis or ultimate truth. Since we have no other choice, we had to use our extremely limited senses of reasoning for the time being until we gain proper understanding. Our aim should be to constantly develop our mind by being prepared to learn from others without giving into blind faith. The Buddha went to every teacher he could find before he gained final enlightenment. Even then, he did not accept everything that they taught. Instead, he used his own reasoning to understand the truth. This is the reason why the Buddha advised us not to take things for granted through mere reasoning. Now let us consider argument or logic. Whatever we think that certain things are acceptable to us, we say they are logical. Actually, the art of logic is a valuable tool for argument. Logic can be exploited by talented orators who use intelligence and cunningness. One who knows how to talk can topple the truth and justice and defeat others. Lawyers argue in the court. Different religious groups argue to prove that their religion is better than the other religions. Their arguments are based on their talents and ability to express their idea, but not necessarily on the truth. This is the nature of argument. To arrive at the truth, the Buddha advised us not to be influenced by argument or logic, but to use unbiased investigation. When people start their argument, naturally their emotion also arises, and this results in heated argument. Later, human egoism adds more fuel to the fire of this verbal battle. In the end, it creates enmity because nobody wants to surrender his own views. Therefore, no one should introduce the truth of a religion through argument. This is another important advice of the Buddha. Then, the next advice is not to accept anything as absolute upon one's own inference. This refers to the belief that are regarded as truth through one's own imagination. Although we have some doubts in our mind, we accept certain things as truth after limited investigation. Since our minds are deluded by a lot of desires and emotional feeling, this mental attitude creates illusion. And we also have our intrinsic ignorance. Everyone suffers from ignorance and illusions. Mental defilements cloud the mind, which then become biased and cannot distinguish between truth and illusion. As a result, we become convinced that only our beliefs are correct. The Buddha's advice is not to come to any conclusion at once by using our emotional feeling, but to get more information and investigate before we come to any conclusion about something. This means we must be willing to hear what other people have to say. Perhaps they can see our wrong concept and help us to recognize the fallacy of what we believe as being true. The next one is not to accept anything which appears to be true. When you see things and listen to some interpretations given by others, you grasp only the external appearance of the object without using your penetrative knowledge. Sometimes the concept or identity that you create about the object may be far from the truth. Try to see things in their proper perspective. Buddhism is known as the doctrine of analysis. Only through analysis can we understand what really constitutes the object and what sort of elements and energies are functioning and how they exist, why they decay and disappear. If you really examine the nature of these things, you will realize that everything that exists is impermanent and that attachment towards these objects can create more disappointment. The Buddha had warned his followers not to rely solely upon one's own speculative experience. After listening to or reading certain theories, people simply arrive at certain conclusions and maintain these beliefs. They fiercely refuse to change their views already made up. The Buddha's advice is not to make any hasty conclusion to decide whether such things are true or otherwise. People can discover many things in this world, but the most difficult thing for them to discern is the truth or reality of all component things. We should not depend on speculative rumors to understand the truth. We may accept certain things as the basis on which to gain an investigation which will ultimately satisfy our inquisitive minds. The decision that we arrive at through speculation can be compared to the decision made by a group of blind men who touched different parts of the body of an elephant. Each man had his own decision about what he thought the elephant looked like. To each, of course, what he had said was true. Although you can see things and know they were all wrong, but they, in their mind, thought they were right. Do not be like the proverbial frog under a coconut shade, who thought there was no world beyond what he could see. We are blinded by our mental defilement. That is why we cannot understand the truth. That is why others can mislead and influence us very easily. We always go on changing our belief which we have accepted as truth. People change their religious labels from time to time because they are easily influenced by human emotion. When once we have realized the truth, we need never change it under any circumstances because in truth there is nothing to change. It is absolute. We should not change our views simply because of another's seeming ability to offer better advice. Some people have the ability to impress you by their behavior and seeming ability to do certain things. You should not accept what they say without again examining carefully the validity of their expression. They may talk about various religious teachers, gurus and meditation masters. They will also indulge in some exaggerations to prove the powers of their teachers so as to influence your mind. If you blindly accept their saying as the truth, you will maintain very shaky and shallow ideas because you are not completely convinced. You may follow them with faith for some time, but one day you will be disappointed after realizing your folly because you have not accepted them through your own understanding and experience. And as soon as another impressive teacher comes along, you will abandon the first one. Examine the advice given by the Buddha. Think how reasonable, rational and scientific his way of teaching is. Do not listen to others with blind faith. Listen to them by all means, but always be mindful and listen with an open mind. You should not surrender your education and intelligence to others when you listen to them. They may try to arouse your emotion and influence your mind according to your worldly need to satisfy your desires. But their aim may not necessarily be to reveal. Do not accept anything on the consideration that this is our teacher or the final advice of the Buddha in this context. Have you ever heard of any other religious teacher who had uttered such words? All the others would say, I am the only powerful teacher. I am God. Follow me, worship me, pray to me. Otherwise you will have no salvation. They would also say, you should not worship another God or another teacher. Think for a while to understand the Buddha's attitude. The Buddha had said, you should not depend blindly on your teacher. He may be the founder of a religion or a well-known guru, but even then, you should not develop your attachment toward him at once. This is how the Buddha had given due credit to man's intelligence, allowed man to use his free will without depending on others. The Buddha once said, you can become your own master. The Buddha would have told us that he was the only enlightened teacher and that his followers should not worship any other god or religious teacher. He did not promise his followers that they could easily go to heaven or attain nirvana if they worshipped him. If we practice a religion simply by depending on a teacher, we will never realize the truth. Without realizing the fact about religion that we practice, we can become victims of a blind faith and thereby arrest our freedom of thinking, and later we become slaves to one particular teacher and discriminate against the others. We have to realize that we must not depend on others for our salvation, but we can respect any religious teacher who is sincere and worthy of respect. Religious teachers can tell us what to do to gain our salvation. But one person cannot save another person. This saving is not like saving a life when it is in danger. This is final liberation from mental impurities and worldly suffering. That is why we have to work individually to gain our own emancipation or full freedom in accordance with the advice given by the religious teachers. No one can save us but ourselves. Buddha merely show the way. Can you think of any other religious leader who would have said this? That is the freedom we have in Buddhism. These are the 10 kinds of advice given by the Buddha to the group of young people called the Kalamas, who came to ask him as to how to accept a religion and how to decide on a true religion. His advice to them was not to be selfish or to become slaves to others, not to do anything only for one's own benefit, but to consider all concerned. You can understand this according to your personal experience. Among various practices and belief, certain things are good for some but not for others. And conversely, certain things are good for others but not for the rest. Therefore, before you do anything, you have to consider both the advantages and disadvantages that accrue to you. These are the guidelines to consider before you accept a religion. Buddhism is a religion which teaches one to understand that man is not for religion, but that religion is for man to make use of it. A man should use religion for his betterment and to experience freedom, peace and happiness. Buddhism is a religion we can use to live peacefully and allow others to live peacefully as well. While practicing this religion, we are allowed to respect other religions. If it is difficult to respect, then at least we are required to be tolerant without disturbing or condemning other religions. Very few other religions teach their followers to adopt this tolerant attitude. The Buddha was almost 2000 years ahead of his time in his attitude towards women. During the time of the Buddha, and even long after that, women had a very low social status. They had very little choice in their career, marriage, property, ownership, and so on. Even in Europe, women were not allowed to vote until the 20th century. When the man died in India, his wife was forced to burn herself. When he was cremated, by hauling herself onto the flaming funeral pyre of her late husband. Actually, many women some of them hardly 16 or 17 years old, preferred death by fire to a lifetime of widowhood. They were very badly treated by their parents and in-law, who blamed them for son's death. Widows would wear no ornament, take part in no celebration, had no rights over their children, and so on. The Buddha condemned such cruel behavior towards innocent women. He held that a man's death was in no way caused by a woman's bad luck, and as such, a widow could not be punished for a husband's death. Then again, the Buddha was the first religious teacher who allowed women to enter into the holy order as nuns. Although for security and practical reasons they were subordinate to the monks, they enjoyed great freedom within the Buddhist framework. There are historical records of highly respected Buddhist nuns, queens, and ladies from respectable families who, after joining the holy order, dedicated their life and mastered the doctrine of the Buddha and led a holy life. In fact, the Therigatha of the Song of the Sisters, which was composed solely by famous Buddhist nuns, hold a very important place in Buddhist literature even today. Besides giving great respect and freedom to women, the Buddha was very much opposed to the caste system which divided people into different social states according to their birth. Because of this practice, some people born to low caste families could only do very degrading jobs even if they had superior intelligence. On the other hand, those born into high-class families enjoyed great privileges even if they were stupid and lazy. The Buddha had said, "Not by birth does one become noble, only by deed can one be judged to be noble." Because of his belief in the equality of men, the Buddha admitted everyone into his order of monks regardless of caste. There is no other religion in the world which puts ordinary human in the same category as their founder. Only the Buddha allowed each human being to think that he had the potential to become exactly like him. There is certainly no other religion in the world which proclaims that its followers can become God. The degree of freedom permitted in the Buddha's teaching is so great that no other religious system can even come near to compare with it. In this discourse called Kalama Sutta, which we have been discussing, the Buddha had upheld the highest degree of freedom, not only in its human essence, but also in its divine qualities. It is a freedom that does not deprive man of his dignity under any circumstances. It is a freedom that releases one from slavery to dogmatic ideas and dictatorial religious laws or religious punishment. It is not only a freedom from enslavement of human passions, but is also the liberation from all entanglement that made people gullible to superstitious belief and prevent people from becoming victims to untruth and the selfish worldly life. It also liberates one from belief in the power of spirit, magic, miracles, and a variety of religious cults. Buddhism helps one to understand the facts of life and the nature of the world. It gives one the freedom from ignorance which enslaves one in a static concept. It gives one the unique freedom to liberate himself through self-effort, purity and intelligence. Buddhism is a religion for man to lead a noble life with free mind. Buddhism does not prevent anyone from reading and learning the teachings of other religions. In fact, the Buddha encouraged his followers to learn other religions and to compare his teaching with other teachings. He says that if there are reasonable and rational teachings in other religions, his followers are free to respect such teaching. It is true that certain people try to keep their followers in perpetual darkness in order to subjugate them. Their followers are not even allowed to touch other religious books. They are instructed not to listen to the teachings of other religions. They are enjoined not to doubt the teaching of their own religion, however unconvincing their teachings may appear to be. The more they keep their followers in the dark, the more easily they can lead them like sheep. If any one of them opens his eyes and sees the light and admit that all the time he was in the dark, then it is alleged that the devil has come to possess his mind. The poor man is given no opportunity to use his common sense, his education, or his intelligence. Those who are interested in changing his views seem to think that he is not perfect enough to be allowed to use his own free will to judge anything for himself. In actual fact, there is no real religious freedom in any part of the world to be. Man has no freedom even to think freely. Whenever he realized that he cannot find satisfaction through the religion to which he belongs, he finds that he cannot obtain satisfactory answers to certain questions. He has no liberty to give up his religion and to accept a religion which will appeal to him. The reason is that religious authorities, leaders and family members have taken that freedom away from him. Man should be allowed to choose his religion befitting his own conviction. One has no right to force another to accept a particular religion. Some people surrender their religion for the sake of a girlfriend or boyfriend without proper understanding of other partner's religion. Such people are no better than puppets. Religion should not be changed to suit man's emotions and human weaknesses. One must think very carefully before one changes one's religion. Religion is not a thing subject to bargain. one should not change one's religion for personal material gain. Religion is to be used for spiritual development and for self-salvation. Buddhists never encourage other religions to come and embrace Buddhism for material gain, nor does Buddhism try to exploit poverty, sickness, illiteracy and ignorance in order to attract new members. The Buddha advised those who came to see him that they should not be hasty to accept his teaching. He advised them to consider carefully his teaching and to determine for themselves whether it was practical or not for their personal use. Buddhism teaches that mere belief or outward rituals are insufficient for attaining wisdom and perfection. In this sense, outward conversion becomes meaningless. To promote Buddhism by force would mean pretending to propagate justice and love by means of oppression and injustice. It is of no importance to a follower of the Buddha whether a person calls himself a Buddhist or not. Buddhists know that only through man's own understanding and exertion will they become nearer to the goal preached by the Buddha. Religious fanaticism is dangerous. A good end can never be reached by bad means. The means can never justify the end. A fanatic is incapable of guiding himself by reason or even by the scientific principles of observation and analysis. A Buddhist must be a free man with an open mind and must not be subservient to anyone for his spiritual development. He seeks refuge in the Buddha by accepting the Buddha as a source of supreme guidance and inspiration. He seeks refuge in the Buddha not blindly but with understanding. To Buddhists, the Buddha is not a savior, nor is he an anthropomorphic being who claims to possess the power of washing away others' sins. Buddhists regard the Buddha as a teacher who shows the path to salvation. Buddhism has always supported the freedom and progress of modern man. Buddhism has always stood for the advancements of knowledge and freedom for humanity in every sphere of life. There is nothing in the Buddha's teaching that has to be withdrawn to face modern scientific invention and knowledge. The more new things that scientists discover, the closer they come to the Buddha. Remember that the Buddha was the most enlightened one who revealed the truth. It was the Buddha who first advised man to exercise his reason and not to allow himself to be driven meekly like dumb cattle following the dogma or religion. The Buddha stood for rationalism, democracy, and practical ethical conduct in religion. A true Buddhist does not depend on external powers for his salvation, nor does he expect to get rid of miseries through the intervention of some unknown power. He must try to eradicate all his passions from his mind to find eternal happiness. The Buddha says, if anyone were to speak ill of me, my teachings and my disciples do not bear any ill will towards him. Do not be upset or perturbed, for this kind of reaction will only cause you harm. On the other hand, if anyone were to speak well of me, my teachings and my disciples, do not be overjoyed, thrilled or elated, for this kind of reaction will only be an obstacle in forming a correct judgment. If you are elated, you cannot judge whether the qualities praised are real and actually found in us. It is accepted that the real followers of the Buddha are rational and liberal-minded. During the last 25 centuries, since the appearance of the Buddha, many changes have taken place in this world. Kingdoms have risen and fallen. Nations have prospered and perished. However, today the world has forgotten many of these past civilizations, but the name of the Buddha remains alive and fresh in the minds of millions of people today. The kingdom of righteousness that he built is still strong and steady. Many temples, pagodas, images, libraries, and other religious symbols erected in his honor were destroyed. Yet, his unstainted, noble name and the message given by him remains in the mind of cultured people. His teachings were introduced in order that cultured and civilized societies could live in peace and harmony. All of life's most difficult problems could be better understood if we would but try to learn and practice his teaching. The Buddha's approach to the problems and sufferings of mankind is straightforward. The Buddha was the greatest conqueror the world has ever seen. He conquered the world with his infallible weapons of love and truth. His teaching illuminates the way for mankind to cross from a world of darkness, hatred and suffering to a new world of light, love and happiness. Religion is employed by many people as an escape from life. So, many people who claim to be religious persons are not authentically religious. They may put on the garb of religion or religious symbols. They may even go very often to places of worship. Still, they have not learned to understand what religion stands for. Religion advises man to do good, but man is not interested in doing good. He is not interested in following this most important aspect of religion. Instead, he clings to certain other practices which have no real religious significance. Still, man has not realized what religion has asked him to do. If we have learned to remove our jealousy, pride and wickedness, at least temporarily, we have found the correct way to practice a religion. But very unfortunately, people organize their religious activities in such a way as not to eradicate evil thoughts, but to harbor and cultivate them in their mind. When we observe the various activities that people perform in the name of religion, we think that religion is progressing. But the real purpose and essence of religion, that is mental development and understanding, is deteriorating day by day. Most of us pretend to be religious, but in the name of religion, we commit the greatest atrocities. Religion is in danger. Religion has brought about much indiscipline and much unrest. On the other hand, true religion is nothing more than the development of an inner awareness and the extension of one's compassion. We have to face our problems and try to solve them peacefully by relying on our spiritual background. To run away from our problem in the name of spiritualism is not courageous and not at all spiritual. The world today is a very sick place. Men and women are rapidly sliding downhill to their own destruction. At the same time, they imagine that they are progressing toward a glorious civilization that is yet to be realized. Religion is spreading everywhere in the name of religion. Many people misuse religion for their personal gain and power. Religion should not be a man's dream about his life and the next world. By living here in this world, simply following dogmatic ideas and becoming a nuisance to others, but to live here and now as cultured, civilized and understanding people by experiencing peaceful and contented life. Buddhism directs man's search inward to the potentiality hidden within himself. Some people believe that Dhamma or Buddhism is something man has, but man is Dhamma or religion. The word Dhamma means to maintain. Therefore, religion is not something outside us that we acquire, but realizing something within us.